Hey everybody, Sean here, and welcome to Revealing Truth. A special thanks to Mark Scott for sharing this. Today we're looking at Uebert Angel, Prophet Uebert Angel, and how God told him to stop eating pork. And this is a very short clip because it's that ridiculous. But if you're not familiar with this false prophet, he's the guy that says that if you don't listen to him, you'll be cursed. That God made a mistake with creation. That Jesus wasn't human. And guess what? Neither are we. He says that we are gods and he decides who wins football matches. That Jesus died a sinner and that God gave all his power to Jesus, leaving himself with none. But if that wasn't enough to convince you that this man shouldn't be listened to, then hopefully today's clip will.
On the Euro train to Belgium, I'm sitting like that. And they brought the food and all that. And they had beef there. And God said, now you can eat pork. I said, but this is beef. He said, tell them you want pork now. I said, pork. They brought it. I said, hey, imagine if I had come to tell you, God said pork is evil. All of us right now will be preaching that doctrine. Pork is demonic. You will not go to heaven. Yet it was only for me. Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego were told, go into the fire. Are you here? Lot was told, run from the fire. One is told, get into the fire. This one is told, run away from the fire. Samson is told, tear the mouth of a lion. Don't run away from it. Confront it and fight. Daniel is told, get in the den of lions, shut up. I can't fight. No, you won't fight. Relax. Not every rule in Christianity is yours.
It's hard to believe that he actually received an applause after that. God does different things with different people according to his purpose, but this has nothing to do with God's rules. If eating pork is demonic and prevents people from going to heaven, then that's how it is. Yet this arrogant man tells a story that God singled him out for this being okay. There's not much to add to this, so let's finish off by reviewing a past video that speaks about if there are foods that Christians shouldn't eat today. And someone recently asked if there were certain foods we should not eat and if blood was okay. Well, Leviticus 11 lays out the dietary restrictions God gave to the nation of Israel. Those that chew cud or have a split hoof, but not both, like camels, rabbits, or pigs. Sea creatures that do not have fins and scales, like crab, lobster, or clams. Birds that eat flesh, like crows, eagles, or vultures. And most flying insects, with a few exceptions. And in Genesis 9:4, God told Moses not to drink the blood of any animal. We have to remember, though, that these rules were made for the Israelites to make them distinct from other nations. In the New Testament, Peter fell into a trance, and in Acts 10:15, God told him not to call anything impure that God had made clean. There's different wordings depending on the translation, but the message remains the same. If we look at Mark 7:19, we'll see that people have come to a couple of conclusions. They all basically say the same thing and come to the same conclusion. We'll start at the top with the NIV version. For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach and then out of the body. In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. The New Living Translation concludes with, by saying this, he declared that every kind of food is acceptable in God's eyes. And the ESV finishes with, thus he declared all foods clean. And this is the conclusion that most seem to believe. But notice the next four versions don't come to the conclusion that Jesus was declaring all foods clean. It just states, thus all foods are clean, or thus purifying all foods, or purging all meats. So here's where the other understanding comes in. If we look at the context of this passage, we see that it's not about food. It's the Pharisees complaining about eating with unwashed hands. You can even see in the heading, this passage is about defilement coming from within, not about declaring all foods being acceptable. In Mark 7:15, Jesus says nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it's what comes out of a person that defiles them. He's showing the Pharisees their hypocrisy. And at the end of the passage, when his disciples still don't understand the parable, Jesus puts it in clear terms and says, it's what comes out of a man that defiles a man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these things come from within and defile a man. So it's more of a heart issue. I don't think this passage is dealing with all food being acceptable. However, with God's statement to Peter in Acts 10, and the fact that Romans 10:4 tells us that Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth, so that includes dietary laws as well. Now, there is, however, one verse that is still debated, and that's Acts 21:25. They said to Gentile believers that they should abstain from eating foods offered to idols, from consuming blood or the meat of strangled animals. Some people think this is still applicable today, while others do not. We can also look at Colossians 2:16 that says not to let anyone judge you based on what you eat. So if you do feel convicted about the verse on blood and strangled animals, then pray about it and ask God for peace on what to do. And if we do eat with someone that is convicted in this way, we must remember what Romans 14 says, and that we shouldn't judge what a person eats if their faith is not as mature as ours. And 1 Corinthians 8:13 also tells us that if what we eat makes a brother stumble, we shouldn't do it. At the end of the day, we are not under dietary laws and should not be overly concerned with what we eat in regards to the Old Testament. But we'll leave it there for today. So as always, leave your thoughts and comments below. And until next time, take care and God bless.